All right. Hi, folks, and welcome to Online Meetup. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Max Katz, and I head education and community for Okta Workflows. And this is our monthly Getting Started with Okta Workflows online meetup, where we cover the fundamentals. Now, today's topic is getting started, and specifically, we're going to be creating a report in Okta Workflows. So every month we cover something else. But still show you the fundamentals. And now, if you see there's a link at the bottom of the screen, it says getting started with Okta Workflows videos. So that link will take you to a page with all the prior getting started videos that we did, right? And just in a list. So you can check those out if you would like, right? But more specifically, we're gonna learn how to identify users for a report. Then we're gonna save the information into Google Sheets document, and then we're gonna email the report. So that's kind of at a high level what we're gonna be doing. So before we start, this event is being recorded, and then a replay will be available on Crowdcast right after we end the session, and also on YouTube tomorrow. I'll send a message with a link to YouTube and any other resources. If you would like, follow our Crowdcast channel, and then when we go live, you'll be notified when we go live. All right, and then my email is in that very first column. So if you have any questions after the event, please feel free to contact me. All right, cool. So let's get started. That's the only slide that I have. But let me share my other screen with you. All right. And let's get started. All right. Um, so I'm gonna create a flow, and then as I build the flow, I'm gonna cover the fundamentals building with workflow. So I'm in this folder called June 2024. I collapsed the folders, but you can see I have a lot of folders, so you can organize your flows into folders. But I already have one flow. This is the flow that I'm going to build, but I'm going to click I'm going to create a new flow, and to create a new flow, click the new flow button, and we get a flow. Now let's give it a name, and we're going to call this basic report. And then it's usually a good idea to give it a description. So okay. And I'm going to check this option, and I'm going to talk about this in just a second, but this saves data. So when we run the flow, it will save the data that was used for that execution. So we can go back and see what data was used, how data passed from step to step. So this is very helpful for debugging and testing the flow. We're going to click save, right? But we created the flow, and we gave the flow a name. Now, when you're starting, when you create a flow, they're usually the first thing you're going to consider is how do you trigger a flow, right? Or how do you run the flow? And there are several ways you can trigger a flow. I would say the 2 or 3 most common ones. So the first one is an event. So you can trigger a flow when an event happens in a system. Now, a system, it could be your Okta organization, but it could also be any third-party sort of system. For example, Google Workspace or some other. Let me show you what I mean by that. Is that I clicked Add Event, and then you can see I have different connected apps, and then I have more apps here. And so these are connectors, right? These are out-of-the-box connectors that Workflows provides. And then every connector is going to support different events that you can use to trigger a flow. So Okta is going to have a long list of events, right? So you can use any of these events to trigger a flow, okay? But let's go back and maybe we'll use Google Sheets. So there's just one event that you can use here to trigger a flow. Let's maybe pick one more. I mean, Salesforce has 3 events on which you can trigger a flow, right? So that's number one, is you trigger based on an event. Now, number two is on schedule. So you can run a flow on schedule. So it could be every hour, every day, or every week. And then to do that, I go sort of click back, and then there's a schedule option. Okay, and then I'll see a dialog where I set the schedule. So that's number two. Now, number three is you can also create a helper flow. Now, we're not going to cover it here, but if you go to the list that I shared, to the page that I shared, we have a lot of videos where we use a helper flow. But helper flow is a flow that another flow calls, right? So you have sort of a main flow, and then it can call a helper flow to do something more specific. And of course, helper flows, um, uh, if you have a list and you need to process a list, you would use a helper flow to process the list. And again, if you go and review that page, we have a lot of videos where we use a helper flow. All right. Now, in this particular example, we're going to use an event. But so let me cancel this. Now, also want to mention is that, let's say you want to use some, a connector, or actually, no, you have a system, I should say. You have a system and you want to trigger a flow based on an event that happens in that system, but it's not available. The event is not available. So another option you can do is you can register a webhook. So in that third system, if there's a webhook, then what you can do is you can call a flow. You can invoke a flow via an API endpoint. So let me just do this quickly here. So what you can do is you can register a webhook, and when that event happens in the system, right, it will trigger this API point, which in turn will trigger a flow, right? So you're not limited to just the events that are available out of the box. If the third-party system supports webhooks, then you could trigger a flow using any of the events in that system. All right, and then again, we do have a video about this also in that list. All right, but let's go back to this example, and then in this example, we're going to be using Okta, and specifically user deactivated event. Right, so start a flow when the user is deactivated. See if there are any questions. I don't see any questions. And yeah, by the way, if you have any questions, you can put them in chat, or there's also a Q&A section, so whichever place you prefer. All right, so I've got user deactivated. Now, what I usually do is I don't continue building the flow. Of course, you could, but I test this right away. I just want to make sure that I can trigger a flow, and then this is all the information that the event makes available, right? These are all the fields. So we need to turn the flow on, and then all right. And notice this option here, save all data that passes through the flow, is also available here as well. All right, so the flow is on, and I'm going to now go to my dashboard, and I need to take a user, select a user, and then deactivate the user. So let's use Jessica here. All right, and I'm going to select more actions and deactivate, and I'm going to say yes. And then I'm going to go back. And to see the execution, you switch to the execution history. And so nothing yet. Sometimes it could take, I don't know, several seconds or sometimes more for the flow kind of to get sort of activated. But usually what I do is I go back to flow, go to execution. No, nothing. Okay, so we might have to run this again. Maybe when I deactivated the user, the flow wasn't sort of active yet. All right, so let's go back and let's why don't we activate Jessica back? All right, and let's deactivate again. All right, so hopefully this will do it now. Oh, here we go. So we have something here. Well, let's see. Yeah. So now it's not showing any data here. So sometimes you have to refresh the page, but let's see if this is okay. So this is, yeah, you refresh the page and then you can see the history. So this is what I said, so you can see the data. We only have one card, but as you can see all the event information. Okay. Now if I went back and let's choose another user, so we'll take Peter here, and then I'll take Peter, and then let's deactivate Peter. So again, you have to wait. Again, I think there was a minute for the flow to get activated. Anyhow, so we deactivated Peter, and let's go back. Let's see here. Let's wait for Peter. Okay, so now we have a second run. So this is Jessica, and if I go scroll down, I can see here, let's see here, it says Jessica here. This is the Okta user, right? And you can expand it like this. There are the two errors. So this is, and then if I look at the other execution, this is going to be Peter. So this is Peter, right? So this is why you want to save the execution history, so you can go back and view the data for each run, right? But again, we only have one card. Of course, it's going to be more interesting when we have multiple, more steps, more cards in the flow. All right. So, but the goal was to just test, hey, we can trigger the flow. This works. So let's continue building the flow. Okay. Now, the next step is I want to save this into Google Sheets. Okay. So, or the information, and specifically, I want to save the display name, and then this is the sort of the email, the alternate ID, and also the time. Right here, I have the time. Now, I created a Google Sheets document with 3 columns. I have a display name, email, and time. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an action. Now, as you can see, I have an action here, and then I have a function. Now, an action, so this is where you call an action on a connector, okay? If you remember at the beginning, I showed you that you can trigger a flow, and I showed you all the connectors, and then these are sort of the same connectors, but now we can call an action on the connector. And this is a list of all the out-of-the-box connectors, right? Now, behind the scenes, these are API calls. But let's use Google Sheets. And you can see these are all the actions that you can call on the connector, right? Now, the one I need is create row because I'm saving information to Google Sheets, right? Now, so there's the connector, and you also need to create a connection, right? So you have one connector to a third-party system, and then you can create a connection. My connection is here, right? So if you didn't have a connection, it will prompt you to create one before you can use it, right? And then if you need to create a new one, you can just click here, right? Now you can have multiple, as you can see, I have multiple connections. So you can have a connection to a production environment, to development environment, to testing environment, right? So a connector to, it's a connector to a third-party system, and then you can create multiple connections to that system for the connector. All right. Now, every action or every connector is going to be different, or every action. And I'm in this particular case, it has some options I need to configure. And then I want to say I want to use a spreadsheet ID. So I'm going to go back to and I'm going to copy this ID. You can also use a name if you want. All right. And I'm going to So you use spreadsheet ID, and I'm going to paste the ID. And then the worksheet this is the worksheet. I'm going to click save. And now it reads the information from the worksheet. And then you can see I have 3 columns, and I need all of them. And they're in the card, they're shown as inputs. So I'm going to click save. All right. And this is right. So I've got the action to create a new row. Now, before I connect data, I can test this, right, and just see how this works. So for example, what I'm going to do for the time, I'm going to go to history, and I'm going to copy this value. And then to test the card, there's a button, test this card. And again, I recommend you test the card individually. And just for this really can go be anything. And then I'm going to paste the time. And then I'm going to click test. And then I get a row number, that's the output. But if I go to the card, I'm sorry, to Google Sheets, I can see that a row was created. All right. So the card works, my connection works, and now I can actually pass data from this card to here. Now, how do you pass data? And this is one of my favorite capabilities in workflows is, so for the display name, what you do is you take a field and you just connect it like this. So this is the Okta user. That's the user that we deactivated. So I passed the display name. The email is the alternate ID. So I'm going to take and connect like this. And then the time, we can take it from here and pass the time. All right. So we can save. Now, what we can do, we can test this again. So let's go here. Let's activate Peter. And that's deactivate Peter. All right, go back, and then execution history. And again, it just takes several seconds here for the, all right, so we can see the third one, right? This is the user deactivated event, and then we can see information, the information here. Let me just see if Peter, okay, yeah, Peter is here. For some reason, it's not showing the output here, but let's do this. Let's refresh and see if it's, all right, yeah, now we see the output here. But again, you can always go to the spreadsheet and see that the Peter was entered. Okay, so let's continue. So this is good. Now, next, I want to create an email, as I said, right? So we save the information into Google Sheets. Now I want to send an email. Now, before I send an email, I'm going to create the email, and specifically, I'm going to create the subject and then the body. Now, for the subject, I'm going to use a function, right? So again, an action is when you call an action on a connector, right? Now, a function, these are cards that allow you to manipulate data. So you can create data, you can edit data, work with lists, objects, numbers, create if-then type functionality, and then so these are the various categories that they're available. Now, what I need is a compose, which allows me to write text. So it's right here, compose. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that as this is going to be the subject. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the display name, and I'm going to say, just at the end here, is deactivated. And this is going to be the subject. Okay. Now, so this is sort of the input, and this is the output. What I also recommend you do is that you can change the name here. So to give you a little more context, because the default value is output. So I'm going to change this to, I'm going to say the subject. All right. All right, so this is the subject. Next, I need to create the body, and I'm going to use another function. I'm sorry, another compose card, and I'm going to say hi. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to use again display name. Now, what's really cool is that if you have to sort of go all the way back to the beginning of the card and take this name and drag it, I mean, that's one option. You can just do this, right? But here's a little sort of tip or trick you can use is that you don't need to go all the way to the source. If you have a field anywhere else that's sort of closer, you can take the display name, and just drag it like this, right? So we're going to say display name, and we'll say maybe user, and then we'll take their email is deactivated. Deactivated. Here we go. And what I also want to do, because this is a report, I want to include a link to Google Sheets document. So whoever gets the report, they can click on the link and see all the users deactivated before. And so we can do view all deactivated users. All right, and now here I need to put a link to the Google Sheets document. Now it's not available. I don't have a link yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a step. And notice that I don't need to add a step only as a kind of the last one. I can also add steps or cards in the middle. And I'm going to use this as an action because I'm connecting to Google Sheets. And then the action that I want to select is read spreadsheet info, right? And then I'm going to, again, by its ID. And this is the input is just the ID, and this is the output. And one of the outputs is the URL, and that's what I need. So I'm going to click Save. Now I'm going to go back to my report. I'm going to copy this, the ID, and set it here. Now, again, I can test this card just to make sure that I get that it works. All right, and then it works. This is the name, and then this is the URL that I need. Right? So I'm going to take the URL and put it right here. Right? So this is my message. I'm going to also rename it. So I select that this is the type of the field, and then you select customize, and it changes to body. Right? And then the last step is to add an action to send an email. Let me quickly check if there are any questions. Right? I don't see any questions so far. And then for this action, I'm going to use the Gmail connector. And the one I'm going to use, send email. This is the action. Right? And again, I have a connection to Gmail, and there are some options. So as HTML, I'm sending just a plain text. And then notice that it has some fields here, to, from, CC, BCC, and so on. Now, I'm not going to set the from or the CC or the BCC. So what you can do is, if you don't need these fields, and you also don't want to show them, is that select the gear at the bottom, and then there is an option called choose fields. And you can choose which fields you want to display. Right? So I don't need the from, right? I do need the subject and the body. Right? And then the card kind of looks more compact. Now the to email I'm going to use, so I'm going to send it to, right? And then the subject, we have the subject, so I'm going to, right? And that's why, again, it's a good idea to rename it. So, oh, this is the subject, so I know where it is. And I'm going to connect the subject. And then for the body, I'm going to use this, right? And so that's the email. All right. Now we can test this. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back to people. And let's see here. Jessica is deactivated. Well, let's go back to Jessica. Let's activate Jessica. All right. And let's deactivate. All right. And so let's go to history. So again, it's going to take a few seconds here, but we can go to the report and we can see actually that it's already, the flow already ran. We can see Jessica Brown, their email, and the time. And let's see here. Okay, now we see the execution, right? So Jessica here, we read the information. Oh, I used the wrong one here. Okay, well, we'll fix this. This is, I think I've connected my name. Okay, we'll fix this. Let's see here. Yeah. Let's see. So it says my name. So I'm the admin, and so I think I connected the admin's name. That's the person who deactivated, but the body is correct, right? And if we go here, so yeah, I made a mistake. Right, this is the email that I received, user Jessica, but the subject was incorrect. And this is the link, just to show you. If I click on the link, it opens. Okay, but let's see. I made a mistake. Let's see what I did. Display name. So if you select the field, the field, it shows you the line. Okay, so what I did, this is the admin, right? And this is the person who is deactivating, and so that's why it's my name. I'm the admin, and I can quickly fix it, and we can collapse it. So this is what I need. The Okta user. That's the user that we deactivated. So I'm going to take display name. All right. So, and again, that's why you want to save the information. But of course, you would also see it in an email, but this helps a lot. All right, let's run this one more time. And let's pick on someone else. Let's go with Peter. Let's activate Peter. And deactivate. Let's see here in the, all right, so we got Peter, right? Same display name, email. And let's see if we are going to get, all right, now we have the correct, we fixed the subject. Now it says, I just need a space here. All right, and so this is now the correct email. And if I look here that there's no space, so I go back and I can add a space, and now it's going to work fine. All right. Well, very cool. That's what I wanted to show you. Let me know if there are any questions. But what I wanted to show you is, we built a flow that automates, basic reporting. We learned how to trigger a flow, various options. In this example, we triggered on an event, but then again, you can use a schedule. You can also trigger via an API endpoint. Those are the options. There's also the helper flow. And again, the link at the bottom of the screen will take you to videos where we cover all these topics. Then we use action cards, and specifically we use Google Sheets, right, to save user information into Google Sheets document. Then we created a message with subject and email body. And then we also use another card, read spreadsheet info, where we got the URL for the spreadsheet so we can include it in the email, right? And then we send the email using the Gmail connector, right? So those are the fundamentals. And again, we also covered how to test the flow, right? So we test individual cards, and we also tested the complete flow. Okay. So, well, let me know if there are any questions. But that's all I wanted to show you. So let me see here. Let me check if there are any questions. I don't see any questions, but well, I guess it could be a good thing. Maybe everything was super clear. But if not, and if you have questions after this event, let me show you this again. So my email is in the very first column. I can also put it in chat. Right. I can also show you this page. Let me go back. Sorry, I'm going to share this again. And this is the page that I was referring to, where it has all the videos, all the getting started videos that we did before, right? And then you'll find also there's a link to YouTube, so you'll find other non just getting started videos on the YouTube playlist as well. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining today. Again, any questions, my email is there. If you have any ideas for future topics, um, please let me know, and I'll be happy to cover a particular topic. Or if there is a flow, for example, for the Getting Started series, again, which is every month, there's a flow, or let me know. It's always more interesting if I get some feedback from the community on what they would like to see. Cool. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.